Ladies and gentlemen, and candidates, my name is Brian Nogler, and I will be your moderator for the evening. I'd like to thank the Connect Club of Walkerton for hosting tonight. I'd also like to thank the candidates for taking the time out of their busy campaigns to be here tonight. We have Gerard Cresses of the New Democratic Party first here, Ben Law of the Conservative Party of Canada next, Jada Spletstoser of the Green Party of Canada, and Alan Thompson of the Liberal Party of Canada. In order for the evening to go smoothly, we have some housekeeping to attend to first. Please turn off all of your cell phones. Make sure you note where the emergency exits are. And you're more than welcome to ask a question. You can hold up your hand if you think that your voice will carry through to the candidates, or you can come to at the end of each aisle and stand in order there, and they'll answer your questions. Each candidate will be given 5 minutes for the opening remarks. Next, we will take questions from the floor, from the audience. And you can direct your question to one candidate or all four, but don't be surprised if another candidate wants to actually answer the question as well. The questions will be answered with a 2-minute time frame by each candidate, and the question is directed at or any responding candidate in a 2-minute time interval. For the candidates, please pay attention to Christine, right here in the center of the audience. She is our timer for the evening, and she will cue you when you're approximately 30 seconds left from each portion of the debate or the meeting. And then there will be an alarm that goes off at the end of your time period, and trust me, it's an annoying alarm. Okay? Thank you. And there will be refreshments served downstairs at the end of the evening. Thank you, and let's begin. Gerard?
Good evening. My name is Gerard Cresses. I'm your NDP candidate in Huron-Bruce. And it's an exciting jump from community news to politics, but I see it as a vital jump and a sacred duty, because Canadian politics are changing and people are voting for progress. And after more than 2 decades of cuts, austerity, and red and blue corruption, the NDP is being, right now, the forefront of progressive politics. And we have been for decades, trying to improve our healthcare, our social networks, our green, sustainable industries, and of course, our food supply. And we have to ask why, only in a year, when the NDP stands to form a government, are the other parties beginning to do the same? Most of Trudeau's platform is pretty much borrowed from the NDP. They've done this in the past, and they promptly about-faced when elected. And Harper's playing catch-up as well, with our child care benefits and lowering the small business tax rate. But why couldn't they have looked after Canadians, made these promises when they held majorities under Harper or Chrétien? In rural Ontario, our concerns are about people. Inequality, seniors in poverty, the high cost of raising a young family, no jobs for qualified people, no qualified people for jobs. Now, the NDP plan to improve life for rural Canada is simple. Invest in people. Invest in dignity in retirement, invest in Main Street jobs, investing in the safety of our most vulnerable, and again, of our agriculture and our food supply. That's why we have plans to create $1,015,000 a day childcare spaces, to invest in small manufacturing with innovation tax credits. The party that brought us healthcare wants to save healthcare. We have plans to create 200 new medical clinics, hire 7,000 new doctors and nurses. We have plans to provide adequate services for 1.5 million young adults under the age of 24 who are suffering alone with mental illness, including those in our communities. And we plan to balance the budget as we do so. Because, like households across this riding, the NDP wants to live within our means. People say it can't be done, or that it will be too expensive. They will say that tonight, I am completely sure. But the thing is, none of them tried. And that's what this election is about. Making an honest effort. Because rural society is taking a beating. Young people are heavily in debt. Seniors are kept on the edge of poverty. And the Canada I grew up in, it's not the Canada I live in now. Profit has taken the place of prosperity, and jobs are low-paying and scarce. Something happened along the way, but it happened gradually. And the backbenchers in power could have changed it, but none of them tried. None of them tried to stop our current government from stripping protection from our water, from shortchanging Canadian farmers, from selling out our manufacturing sector and continuing to sell out our manufacturing sector. They all could have tried, but none of them did. Conservative backbench has been coasting for 4 years now. 4 years of blind obedience and photo ops. Where's the ambition? Or where's the fire to do better? I will make an honest effort, and I will accept responsibility for my choices. Because in Huron-Bruce, in the here and now, the NDP has the best chance to defeat Harper's Conservatives. The numbers are on our side, and we finished second in 2011 with 25% of the vote. Nobody thought that would be possible. And you can go to strategic voting sites, Lead Now, Strategic Vote Canada. They will tell you the NDP is in the best place to put Harper's Conservatives out of a job here in Bruce. And the NDP, as I said, we are in a good position. And our leader, Tom O'Carroll, he's a man of principle. He's adhered to the NDP's principles throughout this campaign. Principles of unity, equality, and peace, and of love, hope, and optimism. We've held our line through some difficult times on Bill C-51, on fighting for the rights of Indigenous peoples, and on taking care of our own humanitarian and environmental crises at home before we go starting wars abroad. The Harper government's been dismantling Canada for the past 4 years, devaluing our labourers, using farmers as bargaining chips, giving crumbs to seniors, and clawing back loaves. Now, people could have stopped it. The backbench could have stopped it. But none of them tried. So I'm asking you tonight to vote for me, someone who's witnessed the effects of government cuts and corporate bailouts on the rural workforce. Because quite frankly, I don't want to take another picture of work boots hanging on a chain link fence the next time a factory closes. Huron-Bruce needs a representative from Huron-Bruce, not a parachute candidate, not a fringe candidate, or one who will put his job prospects ahead of our drinking water, our democratic rights, and finding a meaningful solution to end violence against women. The NDP wants to shift the focus back to people, improve their health, improve their social networks, improve their opportunities to run successful businesses at home and on the farm. My name is Gerard Cressis. I'm your NDP candidate for Huron-Bruce. I'm out of time, but it's time we start thinking about the next generation of politics and the next generation of Canadians. And it's time we took the power back. Thank you.
Next is Ben Law.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. I give each and every one of you full credit tonight for coming out to the debate. You could be watching the Blue Jays clinch the American League East, but you came and watched the debate instead. Good evening, and thank you very much for this important debate tonight. I want to thank the community of Walkerton for hosting this debate. This is our 4th debate out of 8 debates at least that all of us will be participating in. Since our government was first elected in 2006, we've remained focused on what matters most to Canadians. Our top priority has been and continues to be jobs, growth, and economic opportunities. We've provided substantial tax relief in every budget since 2006, and the typical family with children is now receiving tax relief and increased benefits of up to $6,600 per year. This includes cutting the GST from 7% to 5%, establishing and expanding the universal child care benefit, enacting the family tax cut, increasing the annual child care expense deduction limit, introducing and doubling the children's fitness tax credit. Small businesses make up 98% of all companies in Canada, and our record of support for Canada's small businesses remains strong. We introduced the Small Business Job Credit, lowered employment insurance premiums, cut red tape, enhanced the Canada Small Business Financing Program to help businesses get the loans they need to grow. Since 2009, there's been $130 million invested in this riding. Of note, the municipality here receives nearly $300,000 a year in the form of gas tax transfers. That's up from $125,000 just a few short years ago. Of note, the County of Bruce also receives $2 million in gas tax transfers from the federal government. That's up from $800,000 just a few short years ago. We've invested locally, and the transfers are bankable each and every year and are legislated by law. All along, we've stuck to our plan, and this year's budget is balanced, $1.9 billion surplus. But we all know we've got a lot of work to do. And so the question on election day, what's the best way forward? Our government's low-tax, balanced budget plan is providing real, concrete tax relief and enhanced benefits to all Canadians. It's a plan that is supported by prudent fiscal management and a commitment to help hard-working Canadians buy and invest in their homes, cover the cost of their child care, save for a child's education, and prepare for retirement. It's a plan that is working, taxes are lower, benefits are higher. We have accomplished these things because of the choices we've made. Our plan is rooted in a solid fiscal foundation of prudent spending, balanced budgets, and low public debt. Only conservatives can be counted on to help create jobs and growth. Only conservatives can be counted on to make our streets and communities safer. Only conservatives can be counted on to defend and promote Canadian values on a world stage. We're building on that record by cutting the small business tax rate further to 9% over 4 years. As leading job creators in Canada, small businesses are essential to Canada's overall prosperity. Exports from Canada to the world are up nearly 50% since 2009. With 1 in 5 Canadian jobs tied to export, trade is also vital to Canada's continued economic prosperity. Here at home, increasing the number of trade agreements and reducing tariffs our exporters pay is a huge benefit to our agriculture sector. Reduced tariffs on a wide variety of beans as well as beef and pork exports help us remain competitive on world markets. Our government is also supporting communities like I've mentioned before. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. It's been an honor to represent this riding of Huron-Bruce since 2009. Thank you for that opportunity. For a strong voice with proven results, on October 19th, I ask you to vote Ben Law, vote Conservative. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Sarah?
Ladies and gentlemen, and our young people, I'm very happy that we have some more variety and diversity in the people that made time to be here, because we want all Canadians to be involved and as early as possible. Are you a proud Canadian? I'm Jutta Spletsdasser, and I live and work here for over 20 years. And I became Canadian just actually 2 years ago to help to make us proud of our country. I bicycle from door to door through Huron-Bruce as your candidate for the Green Party of Canada in the upcoming election. This is my first attempt. I want you to go home and know what I stand for, who I am, and what the Green Party has to offer. I was born and raised in Germany, just close to the Dutch border, and I stayed there until I graduated as an agriculture engineer. International apprenticeship brought me to this area in 1991, and I chose Huron-Bruce and the municipality of Kincardine as my home. My experience in life consists of education, practical work on our farm, and multiple volunteer positions in associations, organizations, and I enjoy the full support of my husband Ralph and our 4 children. In the past, I stood up for many things, and I will continue to do so. I am not an opportunist. Many Canadians are proud of our leader, Elizabeth May. Just last week, I happened to meet 2 mayors, the mayor of Goderich and here in Kinloss. They happened to be at the mayor's conference in Edmonton. And the only leader who was there, who truly wants to work with all levels of government, was my leader, Elizabeth May. She they were amazed to hear how knowledgeable she is and how she truly addresses the economy unlike any other leader, and she really points out how we have to invest. So I was glad to hear this from people in our municipality, leaders in our municipality, that they actually got to meet her. Because so many Canadians, only if they tune into the Maclean's debate, have that opportunity. So I can say I have a long way to go. I'm certainly not an orator like her, but I'm willing to learn, and I follow the same, I have the same values, and I follow the same principles. And I'm part of a team. We have the most accessible and comprehensive policy book. I really invite you to go onto greenparty.ca and look for yourself how the Green Party and Green Vision 2015 really addresses every major issue, public issue is addressed. And we have also the budget available. It's a balanced budget as well. Greens are conservative spenders as well. So our platform has basically four main pillars. There's sustainable economy, that stands for strong communities, good government, and real climate action. Huron-Bruce and its over 100,000 citizens have a bright future. I know it's hard to say that when I just heard that Everready is closing for a community. How is that possible? But if we invest into our future, into our infrastructure, future technologies, not old technologies, then innovation, there will be serious, and we need serious commitment from the federal government, and there will be jobs for you as well. So we need to create new jobs, but also to create hope in all generations. Imagine to fill the gap between the rich and the poor and taking political action. As a Green MP, I will place your interest first, because the Green Party gives me that freedom. Our leader doesn't whip votes. A Canada that works together. This is what the Green Party stands for. Thank you.
Thank you, Jada.
Good evening. My name is Alan Thompson. I'm a Liberal Party candidate in this riding. The last time I stood on this stage, I was a performer with the County Town Players. Believe it or not, I was the good guy, and my brother Gordon was the villain. So if I mix up my lines tonight, you'll forgive me. I also feel very strongly, there are four of us standing here tonight. Part of what I think is the most important Canadian election in a generation. So you have to decide what kind of Prime Minister, what kind of government you want. But you also have to decide who you want in Huron-Bruce as your Member of Parliament. And I do feel very strongly that rather than reading party talking points and lists of numbers to you, I think we all as candidates have a responsibility to tell you who we are, why we want this position, why we're seeking your support. So my name is Alan Thompson. I was born on a farm about 20 miles from here near a little village called Glamis. Went to high school just up the street here in Walkerton. It's quite comforting in a way to be here in this room in an audience where I have family members, aunts and uncles, former classmates, former teachers. It's nice to see a group of people here, as Ben said, taking time away from the Jays game to be part of the political process. So I think it's important for us as candidates to tell you who we are. I studied here. I went off to work as a journalist. I worked for 17 years with the Toronto Star newspaper. A decade of that time I was on Parliament Hill with the Toronto Star. In the last 12 years, I've been teaching journalism at Carleton University. 2 years ago, my family and I made a decision. I had reached a sort of crossroads where I just decided I could no longer stand by and watch what Stephen Harper was doing to my country. I decided I had to do something. So what could I do as an individual? Well, I could seek office. I could come home and run in Huron-Bruce, seek not only to represent this riding, but to win this riding and help Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party to form a government in Canada. And that's what I'm doing, and I'm asking for you to join in that. Now, as I've been campaigning around Huron-Bruce, I'm talking about three very simple themes: integrity, fairness, and the need for a strong rural voice in Huron-Bruce. Integrity, I hear every day, on every doorstep. Like you, many people in Walkerton, across Huron-Bruce, are sick and tired of what they see in Ottawa. They're tired of the Harper government and his personal style as Prime Minister. They are tired of scandals like the Duffy scandal and the Senate scandal. People have lost trust in their government, and frankly, I think their government has lost trust in them. I'm doing this to try and do what I can to restore integrity to the political process in Canada. And I think that's very important and a big part of what this election is about. Fairness. And fairness leads to the policy platform that I'm part of, that I want to implement in Huron-Bruce, and that my leader Justin Trudeau has laid out in this election campaign. Fairness in many respects across the board. Examples such as the Canada Child Benefit. Rather than giving a universal benefit to everyone across the country, including millionaires, the Liberal plan would not give those benefits to people in upper income brackets. We need to get back to a Canada where we try to take care of others before we take care of ourselves. Help those who need it most. The same is true for seniors. It's appalling that our seniors have to live on the CPP benefit as it now stands. The Liberal government would work with the provinces and employers to increase that benefit, to increase by 10% the benefit that low-income and single seniors receive. We need to do more for our seniors in Canada. We need to help Canadians who are in the middle class and those who are trying to join it. Fairness is a touchstone. This riding needs a strong rural voice. This is a small town riding. People in Ottawa making decisions, I'm convinced, are thinking about the cities. A riding like this one needs someone who will stand up for those who live on farms, on country roads, and in small towns. And that would be my mission as a Member of Parliament. So tonight, I am asking you to support me to vote for the Liberal Party and Alan Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll now move on to the question and answer portion. Does anyone have any questions? Please come to the front if you do.
In 1994, the federal government began to divest itself of ownership in many local Canadian airports. The vast expanse of Canada demands an efficient aviation system to service its many far-lying regions, and the cost of maintaining an airport is a large burden to small local governments. Does your government have any intention of aiding local government to keep local airports functional, to help in serving the vastness of Canada? And if so, what will your party do to ensure that Canada has a national airport policy that supports small community airports? And will your government design an infrastructure program geared to small local airports and not the 26 large local airports that the Conservative government thinks exist in Canada only?
Phil, who is your question directed to?
To all four candidates.
Okay, if you could please say who it's directed to, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Our government has provided tremendous support to airports, all sizes, and throughout the years, certainly since 2006, there's been a tremendous number of dollars gone into small airports, airports from one coast to the other, to improve runways, to improve the facilities in and around the airport, and those dollars are available each and every year. Municipalities, most of the municipalities in our area own the airports. There's a couple of exceptions. It's their prerogative to put applications in on behalf of the airport. They have priorities. It's for them to choose. But you don't have to go very far in this region to see multiple funding announcements for small and rural airports. So our government has supported local airports quite strong. Thank you.
No, Ben, it hasn't. And in fact, this year...
Is this, now just so I'm clear, are we debating people in the audience tonight, or are we asking supplemental questions, or what's the rules here?
No, we're not debating people.
Okay.
Fine, I'll drop it, but the Conservative government has done nothing for the airport.
Now just hold on a second. You're wrong. I just gave you a list a mile long, and there's airports in all of southwestern Ontario that have received funding.
The restrictions on the infrastructure program are such that no airport in this area can apply for it. I've
Talk to any mayor, talk to any councillor.
I'm talking to our mayors who also are airport chairman, that we can't apply for it because there's a restriction to our airport.
Thank you, Phil.
I'd like to just say to you that I honestly don't know what the Green Party's position is on a national airport G system. So I will look into it and I'll give you an email and we can stay in touch. But what I can say, as I was a candidate in the municipal election, and I looked at the airport Geneva report for the municipality of Kincardine, and I know it would have been $14 million, I believe, for the airport expansion, which is not possible for a municipality. There was discussion to apply for Canada Build funding, but I think your question certainly needs to be addressed and not just say we're gonna leave it open. I think this is a struggle that we are facing all in our riding, because there's several airports. Thank you for your question.
Anyone else?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Englishman. I mean, that's an important question. Infrastructure, transportation infrastructure of all kinds is important in any community, but I think especially important in a rural community where we're not serviced by public transit and other forms. Train travel is no longer possible in this area. So I think airports, local airports, are very important, a key part of our infrastructure. I think one of the most significant aspects of the party platform that Justin Trudeau has put forward is really a historic investment in our infrastructure of all kinds, $125 billion, double what's currently being spent. And the Liberal government would turn to municipalities and ask them that question. What is most important to you? What matters to your community? And I would assume that in areas like this, having well-functioning local airports is a critical part of the rural economy.
Thank you. Anyone else? George?
Okay, first I'll start. If you read the National Post today, you would know that costing out the Liberal platform, the billions of dollars that they're committing to infrastructure actually boils down to about $4.2 billion going into hard infrastructure across this country. But as far as airports, I can only tell you what I've seen as a reporter at the municipal level, and I just understand the pain. When I was a reporter in Goderich, the issue was there too, and really it's the dedication of the people that are working at the airports is pretty much the only thing keeping them alive. They're the ones out in the summer tarring up the cracks. They're the ones that are always out there, basically putting their snowplows together with bubble gum and coat hangers just to kind of get through another year. And I do agree with Ben to an extent that the municipality, where there is a will, there is a way. And because it's a municipal where they need to show the most leadership, I do think they have to quit doing those bubblegum fixes, because I've seen it happen, and they just keep doing this, and someday that snowplow's going to break down, that runway's going to crack, you're going to be out of tar, and yeah, we need long-term planning. As far as the NEP, for increased municipal funding anyways, we would actually add another cent into the gas tax fund that would come back to municipalities for spending.
Thanks, Gerard. Next.
Thank you. This is a question for all candidates.
Okay.
I'm a citizen of Bruce County, and I've been heavily involved with the nuclear waste dump, the DGR process. A DGR, a nuclear waste dump, will cost the taxpayers billions of dollars for one. My first question is, why are we building two DGRs and costing separately billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, in our community, two of them, when the one that is proposed at Kincardine is going to consist of 80% of the volume will be clothes and rags that the workers, nuclear workers, wore and used while they were working at the nuclear plant. Those clothes and rags, they didn't need any protection when they were working with them or wearing them, but now we're going to bury them a mile under the ground to protect the citizens from the radioactivity of the clothes and rags. Just crazy. But the spent fuel, that's a different story. And the intermediate's a different story, because that's just as dangerous as the spent fuel. Why are we building this clothes and rags DGR for billions of our taxpayer dollars when we could put it all in one with the spent fuel and the intermediate, if that's the way it's going to be at the end of the day? But right now, that's in limbo, and we're going to build this thing for clothes and rags. That's just illogical. I want to know why we're spending the billions of dollars, and then we're going to spend another billion of dollars for another DGR somewhere else in our own community. And the other thing is, 7 years of unlawful closed meetings. Unlawful closed meetings by the Bruce County Council kept the citizens out of that DGR process. I want to know how you candidates can get us, the citizen, every citizen of Bruce County, how we can now get a vote on that DGR. We were left out of the process for 7 years illegally. And now I'd like a vote, and I'd like to know two things. Why are we building two DGRs at billions of dollars of taxpayer money? And one for a useless 80% clothes and rags that don't need a DGR. And why don't we have a vote for the most important process ever to confront our community? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your question. So we've got two questions on the table. Anyone want to answer, starting?
Sure. As far as why you don't have a vote, I mean, I can't speak for the municipal government whatsoever. So, unfortunately, I don't have an answer to that. As far as why build two, the low intermediate or low-level waste, anyways, is a lot different than the high level. I mean, right now, all of it's above ground, and it's a difficult situation. And one of the things is people on both sides of this argument have to actually be willing to sit down together. Because I think years back when they were talking about shipping the boilers over to Sweden, where they had the technology to reduce the toxicity of the lower intermediate level waste, people did not want it on the Great Lakes, and they fought tooth and nail to not have it on the Great Lakes. They said, come up with another plan. They came up with another plan, and people don't like this plan either. And the NDP stance is a community vote must be the first and most important step. But the problem is we have to establish the size of the community. So is it the community of, I'm drawing circles on my paper here, but is it the community of Bruce County? Is it the community of the Great Lakes Basin? Is it the community of, even wider than that, anybody who draws water, uses water from that basin? And so really, and I know this is probably a very unsatisfactory answer for you, but both sides really have to sit down and hash out an agreement on this, because right now it's don't like the solution, come up with another one, come up with another one, don't like the solution, come up with another one, come up with another one. And this, I guess, is probably the crux of the argument with the municipalities kind of refusing to involve the public.
Well, the point is, if you need any Just build one, don't build two, at double the billions of dollars of our taxpayer money.
Well, that's fair, but we have to think about this in the terms of high-level waste too. If this stuff is going to be retrievable and hopefully recycled, I mean, that's where I want to see the money invested in trying to recreate these things. You know, instead of shipping this stuff over to Sweden, why don't we build that stuff here, process it, reduce the toxicity, reduce the shelf life, and compact this much unnecessary waste, take only the parts that are radioactive out of it, and have this much left to actually have to dispose of. Now for the high level, I do understand why that would have to be separate, because when we actually start investing in recycling technology, we have to make sure we're able to get at that, reduce the toxicity, reduce the shelf life, and use the full potential of that uranium. Next.
Thanks for the question, Don. We've had many good discussions about this in various offices of mine. The beginning of the discussion on the low and intermediate waste, we have to go right to the beginning of the way our country is set up. And we're a federation, and we respect each jurisdiction, each level of jurisdiction, municipal, county, provincial. The municipality of Kincardine, their council, their elected council, wanted to be a host community for low and intermediate waste with the support of Bruce County Council at the time. I believe the support is still there for that. All the low and intermediate waste is currently at the Bruce Power site, managed by OPG at the Western Waste Facility. The environmental assessment, the Canadian environmental assessment, has been completed, and the project is at that point. So I think the community has spoken. I think that the scientists have spoken, and council of the day and current council continues to support the program and the project. On the spent fuel, obviously coming up with a technology, working on a technology that would allow the spent fuel to be reused is a great initiative, and one that I know we'll be continuing to work on, and OCANDU is very excited about those opportunities. And we can do both at the same time with the adaptive phase process, but we as a country that has nuclear energy, we have a long-term commitment to find long-term storage for our spent fuel. Hopefully we find a recycling way through CANDU technology, hopefully, to repurpose and reprocess the spent fuel.
But that's the point. Let's find out what we're doing with spent fuel and throw everything else in there. Just one. No, this low and intermediate, just nonsense. It's just closing the rag.
So why are we building 2 DGRs? Because people planned it. And I see that the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission and OPG and our local mayors work together. And how do we get a vote? To educate ourselves. I think what I keep hearing, that there's too many Canadians and people here, and even local citizens, that still don't know really what it's all about. The Deep Geologic Repository and the acronym DGR, and for the high level waste, it's now the Adaptive Phase Management Program. But I can tell you that it doesn't have to be like that 5 municipalities get in the hosting agreement before the citizens were asked, get promised to get paid over 30 years, $35 million. The licensing hasn't been given. The Federal Minister of the Environment, whoever is elected or appointed December 1st, will have the decision making, and we have still a voice. So I can promise you that I would certainly try to use my influence. And the Green Party has the position that there should be no nuclear waste burial in the Great Lakes Basin. Water and nuclear waste doesn't mix.
Thank you, Sean. When it comes to the DGR, for the low and intermediate waste, 2 things are of utmost importance for me. Continued safety and security of our communities, and my support and the support of my party for nuclear power as a safe, clean source of energy, and really as the backbone of our local community and economy. As to the sort of two-track decision-making process for the DGR, I come back to a central point of the current Liberal campaign. Government needs to abide by evidence-based policymaking. A determination was made to go on these two tracks, to deal with the low and intermediate waste first, to deal later on a much longer timeline with, in some ways, the more complicated and vexed question of the spent fuel. And can we find another use for it before it comes time for us to permanently dispose of it and to store it? And I think that's my understanding of the two-track process. And to me, it's an example of evidence-based policymaking.
The clothes were worn by the nuclear workers. There's no reason to put them in a DGR to protect us from radioactivity. Hell, they wore them to work. Look, I mean, it's just so illogical. And it's OPG and Ken Carter dreamed up the low and intermediate. It wasn't the federal government or Ontario government did. It's a two-track nonsense.
Thanks for your question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next.
This question is for our Conservative candidate. It appears that there's a lot of misunderstanding floating around about the federal health care transfers to the provinces and how it gets distributed within the provinces to the healthcare organizations. Could you explain how the distribution of funds for healthcare goes from the federal government to different healthcare organizations within the provinces? And has the amount of money transfers from the federal government to the provinces been reduced?
Okay, thank you for the question. Certainly, through the last 10 years of door knocking and being an elected member for many years, obviously healthcare is one of our number one priorities as communities in the delivery of healthcare, the way in which we deliver healthcare. I've had the honor of being the chair of the Health Committee in Ottawa. You may be surprised to know that the federal government transfers each and every year in excess of $13 billion to the province of Ontario for funds to deliver health care. In addition to that, we deliver funds in equalization payments and also for social programs. That total is getting very close to $20 billion per year. On an annualized basis, it's been a 6% increase each and every year. Unfortunately, in Toronto, with successive governments of Kathleen Wynne and Dalton McGuinty, we've unfortunately not seen the same increase in our provinces. Unfortunately, it's only 1.5%. The rest of the 4.5% has been invested or spent or wasted through Kathleen Wynne's government. So our government, we respect federal jurisdictions. We understand it's the province's jobs to deliver health care. We have many pan-Canadian projects that we do work with on Premier. We do work with premiers on, many of them on aging, for example, on prescription drugs, for example. We have many success stories working with premiers and health ministers, but it's unfortunate when you see the billions and billions of dollars of waste at the provincial level when they could have delivered top quality health care, reinvested those dollars they wasted on top quality health care in our rural communities. It's a real shame on the provincial government.
Out knocking on doors, the single most common issue that is raised by people is healthcare. And it's very, very striking when you go and meet people on their doorsteps and you meet elderly women who are dealing with partners with Alzheimer's, you meet people with children with special needs, people who are really struggling to find healthcare solutions. I think it is one of the most pressing issues for us to deal with. But Ben, I just don't think it's satisfactory to say this is the province's job. We live in a federation. We have a Canada Health Act for a reason. We have a Minister of Health for a reason. And most importantly, we have a Prime Minister of a federation of 10 provinces and territories for a reason. It's incumbent upon the Prime Minister of this country to seize one of the most important issues of the day, healthcare, to show leadership, to bring together the provinces and the premiers, whether he likes them or not, show leadership, bring these people together, confront the issue of health, and find solutions. I mean, the blame game is just, is getting a bit tired.
The Green Party certainly does not think that the two-tier healthcare system is the solution. And to, like, prescription drugs can be actually covered. There's countries in the world that do have a national pharmacare system. When you hear in the media how much our prescription, our medication costs us, it's just unbelievable. It's not necessary. If we buy a prescription in bulk, Canada can actually save $11 billion. There should be no reason, and when people can't fill their prescription, we try to save money on the wrong end because we might have other problems. So what we spend on healthcare dollars, what we get is not what should be expected, and that could be changed.
Yeah, when it comes to health, I guess a good thing to keep in mind is that $13 billion a year used to be a $36 billion health accord between the federal government and the provinces. And so here we are at just about 1/3 of that spending. And so where did it go? And I agree, we do need some federal leadership on this. I mean, Tom O'Carroll, he's been very adamant about making sure that there's 2 First Ministers meetings every year, trying to get everybody on board on the same page. And the NDP is very much at the forefront of trying to get a national drug plan going. Because, well, as Yetta alluded to, for $1 billion, the payoff or the long-term savings, and it depends on which medical body you go by, but it could be as high or between, say, $4 and $9 billion. It depends if you go by the CMHA or the CMA. But mental health, you think about that in just one aspect of healthcare spending. And a national pharmacare plan, how much that would save us, not only in long-term healthcare costs or increased hospital stays, but you have to think as well in EMT costs, in police costs. Because right now, the police are doing, emergency workers are doing a lot of the heavy, excessive, and sometimes unnecessary lifting in the mental health care system because we're not focusing on preventative medicine. And the NDP's got a $2.5 billion national drug plan, and that will help us address those young, alienated people as well that are suffering with mental illness in our communities. And as I said in my intro, we also want to dedicate $300 million, build 200 new clinics in this province, or this country rather, hire 7,000 new doctors and nurses, and again, focus on not only mental health, but PTSD, focus on our veterans, our refugees, and even our Aboriginal population who have been overlooked for so long in the healthcare system. It's embarrassing.
Thank you, Gordon. I'm going to remind the candidates that if you want to do a rebuttal, you could use your last 2 minutes to actually use that portion for that as well. Yes. Okay. Next question.
My name is David Wood. I'm from Mildmay, and I have a question regarding free trade, specifically a deal that's being worked out beginning tomorrow in Atlanta. Canada's trade minister is there to finalize a Trans-Pacific Partnership deal, which on the table includes supply management, which could eliminate supply management in rural Canada. From what I've been told, the hearing already 10% of that might be already negotiated away. So what I'm asking as a candidate and as an elected MP, if that deal were to come to your government before you and it did not fully protect supply management, would you oppose it or would you support it?
Well, when it comes to the TPP, definitely we want to see supply management taken out of it. And to go along with the healthcare answer earlier, we also want to take drug patents out of it. Because I don't know if you guys have been reading in the news, one single person, hedge fund guy, bought up, I forget the drug name, but it's very much used to treat some complications that happen with some very seriously ill patients, including AIDS patients. And he jacked up the price from $13.50 to about $750. And that's the type of Canada we're going to be living in if we don't protect patents, if we don't protect drugs, and when it comes to supply management, if we don't protect, between 8 and 10% of Canadian farmers. And further, I just want to say, I guess, what kind of a Prime Minister would say the auto sector is not going to like this free trade agreement? Really? Answer that for me. I have no idea, because under this agreement as well, and our auto manufacturing sector has been lambasted. It's been crushed, reduced to nothing almost. And under this government, they're going to reduce the amount of CanCon for Canadian or autos manufactured in Canada from 60% to 45%. And it doesn't take a math whiz to see that's a 25% reduction. So what's going to happen to the auto manufacturing workforce should this agreement pass? And no, the NDP does not want to see this happen, and we will fight tooth and nail to make sure that Canadian jobs, Canadian dairy, Canadian poultry, Canadian health are protected in any free trade agreement.
Thanks, David. I don't know if we've ever met before, but I was kind of hoping tonight you would get up to the microphone and apologize to one of my volunteers who's in the room tonight, who's a young high school student who you've bullied, but putting up signs in the Mile Bay community. I thought that's what you might get up to the microphone tonight
No,
to do.
my only opposition to your signs, Mr. Lobb, was the one that you planted directly in front of our community, and I emailed you twice on that. No, that's the only time I spoke to anyone, and you didn't return any of my emails regarding that sign, and you're making use of a community sign for your own promotion. And that's the only involvement I've ever had with any of your signs. I don't know who you're talking about who bullied one of your campaigns, but it wasn't me. I'm too busy working. I drive
On the question on supply and management, David's quoting a story from the CBC, which was later in the day proven incorrect by the Minister of Trade, Ed Fast. We've concluded 43 trade agreements and have protected supply management each and every time, and also furthered our interest for the agriculture sector. Tariffs on beans. You can drive up and down any county road and see all the beans that we grow. We sell these beans around the world. The lower the tariffs, the better for us when we're competing in the world market. In addition, beef and pork, we've been able to protect supply management. We've been able to do both. So our government is the only government. The previous Liberal government didn't do anything for trade. The agriculture economy in Huron-Bruce in the last decade has had the absolute best decade in the last 100 years in agriculture, and that's a fact. That's a fact. In regards to manufacturing and automotive manufacturing, I worked in the automotive manufacturing sector. We could have a whole debate on this factor. Electricity. Kathleen Wynne's and Dalton McGinty's flawed electricity mistakes, increased costs, mismanagement at the executive level has cost manufacturers in the billions of dollars. If we had more competitive electricity rates, you can talk to any small business, but there is business ready to come here for manufacturing. Linamar has supported TPP. Mark Lorraine has supported TPP. Two of the three largest automotive part manufacturers in Canada support the deal. This is good for manufacturers. It's good for consumers. It's good for agriculture. I mean, we cannot say we're going to turn our backs on 40% of the world market, okay?
You feel those hundreds of farmers that were on Ottawa Hill today with their tractors felt protected? They were protesting something, weren't they?
On the trade side, I think where the people worry us when we have Foreign Investment Protection Act, and when our government signs contracts that lock us in for 32 years and we don't really know what it all entails, that we basically sell our sovereignty to corporations. So I can totally understand the concern of the people. And supply management, there's only a few countries that really you go there and you see what happens when supply management is not there anymore. I truly think that we have to have good policies to protect the family farm, and there is not just an economic value to it, it also determines our social fabric and our culture. So yes, David, I will stand up for supply management.
David, Liberal governments helped create the supply management system in Canada, and the Liberal Party has been very clear that it would stand in defense of supply management. At the same time, we need to pursue the kind of export markets that the TPP could open up for beef, for pork, for other agricultural commodities. We have to find a way to square the circle, to do both, to protect supply management while we pursue international trade agreements. It's difficult to do that in a cloak of secrecy when we as Canadians, in the middle of an election campaign, don't know what's going on in these talks and don't really have a clear idea of what's happening with supply management. It's one thing to speculate about media reports. It would be nice to know exactly what is happening with one of the critical pillars of our agricultural economy. And if you'd allow me a brief aside, we're 1 hour into this debate, and Ben has now invoked the name of the Premier of Ontario, or a former Premier of Ontario, 5 times. Let me tell you something. Every time the Conservative candidate talks about Premier of Ontario, it's because there's a name he does not want to say, and that name is Stephen Harper. He's the one who's running for Prime Minister. He's the one that we should be talking about here this evening.
This question is for the Green Party, the Liberal Party, and the NDP Party. It appears that we have 3 Green parties here, the Liberal, the NDP, and of course the Green Party. All of these have committed to significantly reduce the carbon emissions if they are elected. As an example of such policies, the Liberal Party of Ontario, with Kathleen Wynne at its head, has made the electricity so costly in this province that people are forced to use a lot less. So my question is, since the majority of carbon emissions in Canada are from oil-related industries and transportation, are you planning to do the similar thing as in the case of the electricity prices in Ontario? And that is to increase taxes on all oil products, such as gasoline, diesel, tires, and anything else that's oil-related, so that people can't afford them and therefore won't use them? Are you going to limit the amount of mileage people can drive? In other words, what exactly are you planning to do to reduce these carbon emissions? And remember that your leaders have committed to reducing these emissions significantly.
Who would like to go first? Scott?
So we have a really good example in British Columbia. This is not what the Green Party proposes, a carbon tax, but there's really, in the business sector, there's many people that really realize that it makes sense to put a price on carbon. The Green Party
I'm not asking about the prices of carbon. I'm asking, what are you doing to reduce people or make people not drive, is the bottom line. Because that's what you're planning to do, is making people not drive.
Well, I mean, certainly in our riding to get to somewhere, you drive, right? So public transportation is important to develop more. you can carpool, you can do other things. But the key is that by putting a price, like you tax what you don't want, and I appreciate if you want an answer, you have to actually give me a chance instead of like keeping interrupt me. So I let somebody else explain. The carbon fee and dividend is you put a price on carbon. Yes, this is when carbon, like fossil fuel, comes out the ground, and you decide on a price, and the proposed price is $50. And this goes not in the coffers of the government that it disappears. It's set aside, and that money, that revenue gets actually, that's where the dividend comes in, divided by each person over 18 years. You get a check back, and there is proof that at the end, the people that use the least are actually benefiting. So 2/3 of Canadians will have a net benefit. That's how I can explain it to you.
I think when it comes to reducing carbon, we need national emission reduction targets. This involves leadership at the national level, like healthcare, another major issue of our time. Our Prime Minister needs to take a leadership role on this question. Justin Trudeau has committed that he would not only personally attend the Paris conference at the end of this year, but would take along with him all the premiers of the provinces. We need to work together with the provinces. We can't simply single out motorists as a single
Motorists are the
solution.
most, the
But
ones
it's
that
not
are
the
most
only,
affected by carbon emissions. So
Okay, but
how
it's
do you
not-
prevent motorists from driving?
By having national emission reduction targets that would involve provinces developing strategies, working together with the national government to see what we can do as a community on a very important issue.
Enforcement body?
I would like that you play by the rules, and I know you are used not to play by the rules, because when we were not allowed to put election signs out, this man was putting up election signs out in Bruce County, so the big boys don't play by the rules, and I really think if we want to have answers, please talk. Give people the chance to answer and don't let them lose their sense. Like, I don't think this is a good example, and our young people left already, but I think I really like this.
Okay, so ask your question and then please step back from the microphone. Thank you.
And include a question mark. It's not necessarily keeping people off the roads, and I'm sorry I can't see it, but there's a few ways that we can actually do this. Cap and trade system, so if you are over polluting, you can get credit by purchasing them off under polluters. So we have a set goal for carbon emissions, and if other people are drastically I don't want to say underperforming because that sounds negative, but really below their targets, then there is some wiggle room for the people that are. But with a cap and trade system too, the manufacturers or the people in say the oil industry have a choice every step of the way. We could either pay for more credit, or we could try and reduce our pollution. And people seem to forget that that is a conscious choice that is involved with the carbon cap and trade. It's not penalties, it's a conscious choice from the people generating the pollution. There are other ways also that we can reduce our carbon footprint without taking people off the roads. And one of the huge ones is processing Canadian oil at home, not building pipelines to ship it out to the US for them to take our oil and for them to create thousands of jobs in a new industry in the US when we could have been doing that at home all along, reducing our carbon footprint, putting Canadian gasoline in Canadian cars, and creating Canadian jobs in the process. And I could go on. And just one further point on that too, we would also be reducing our global impact, because if we have a domestic oil market, we would not be fighting half the battles that we would be fighting overseas.
beside you, one to the right, two to the left. They all have a scheme to put a price on carbon, okay? Let's be clear, when you put a price on carbon, who pays? Each and every one of you in the room, you pay, and you pay more. That's a fact of life. And that's what they're proposing, is that you pay, okay? That you pay. Under our strong leadership of Stephen Harper, there's one reference to Stephen Harper so far tonight, we've reduced greenhouse gas emissions, okay? We reduced greenhouse gas emissions. If you take a look at what the Liberals did in their 13 years, they set very, very aggressive targets on emissions and did absolutely nothing to achieve it. And in fact, emissions went up 30% with Jean Chrétien and Stephen Harper. When you can, there's Jean Chrétien and Paul Harper. I just wanted to make sure I got enough references to Stephen Harper. I'm up to 2. If you contrast that to Stephen Harper, emissions went down. Okay, very clear. Sector by sector approach, regulatory approach to reduce emissions has worked. Fuel efficiency standards for automobiles is one of our great successes. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was on healthcare. Okay, under the leadership of Stephen Harper, that's 4 references now.
Let's try and stay on track
have
with the
increased.
questions.
With healthcare under the previous Liberal government, they had 13 years. What did they do with healthcare? They gutted transfers. They broke the provinces, and it's taken 20 years to get our healthcare system back on track. And if you don't believe me, ask anybody that's in the healthcare profession today. Thank you.
Please, if you don't mind, please stay on track with what the questions, answer the questions. All right, thank you. Next question.
My next question is about leadership and how proud I am of Stephen Harper and his leadership. Stephen is part of, I think, a government designed to address our concerns about world terrorism. They have proposed legislation that will see convicted. Now, I'm not talking about people on trial. I'm talking about convicted terrorists, people who would blow our government buildings up, murder innocent people, who are convicted terrorists, would, if they had dual citizenship, would have their Canadian citizenship revoked. Now, I think that's leadership. I'd like to ask the Liberal candidate what he thinks of the Liberal leadership suggesting that these people should remain in Canada at our cost.
A Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian.
A terrorist is a terrorist is a terrorist.
A Canadian is a Canadian. A fundamental aspect of our country, of our Charter of Rights, of our rule of law. If you're born here, like I was, and I was lucky to be, I'm a Canadian citizen. If I make the choice to move to this country, if I'm admitted to Canada legally, and I am granted Canadian citizenship, a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. If I commit a heinous crime, I should go to jail, and that's where I should stay. It's our responsibility as Canadians. Those people, whether we like it or not, have been admitted to this country legally. They are members of our society. They should go to jail. Why would you strip? Even conservatives should think this through. Why should you strip someone of their citizenship and deport them to God knows where? Why would you do that? Why would you send this person back to Iraq or to Syria or to Somalia? To do what?
To make us safe.
There's a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian, and I am proud. I clapped last night when I watched Justin Trudeau saying those words because I think it defends a fundamental principle of our society. And I think when we start creating second-class citizens, everyone who was not born in this country but chose to join the Canadian family starts looking over their shoulder and wondering, am I next? What crime is now going to warrant stripping Canadian citizenship? A Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian.
Well, Alan, you're out to lunch on that one. If you want to go door knocking, if you've been out door knocking, I try that line on the people in Huron-Bruce, and you'll find out real quick, you're at odds with the vast majority of the people in this riding. If you have dual citizenship and you commit an act of terror, you're out of here. And that's the bottom line. We already do it.
Where?
We already do it in other examples. We
Where?
already.
Alan, let him answer, please.
It's pretty obvious, Alan, where you have citizenship in the other country. You know that.
Here.
And
what
you
are they
don't
gonna
have.
do to you? Are they going to put you in jail? Are they going to acquit you? Are they going to release you? Are they going to
Well, I think-
exonerate you
I
of
think-
your crime so that you're
I
on a
think-
plane and you're back here? This makes no sense even for you.
Alan?
I think we hit a nerve. I think what we've done here, Bill, is we've hit a nerve with Alan, because I would love to see him go door knocking for a day and see the responses in this community. Him defending why a terrorist from another country should stay in this country. You're dead wrong, and you're wrong on other issues, and we can go on at length about those. Let's do it. So another one that you're wrong on is at
Let's stick to the question, please.
I did answer the question. On citizenship ceremonies, Alan's wrong as well.
Have one of your people ask that question and then we'll answer. How about that?
How about,
Yeah, I know it's possible.
did I not answer my question? Did I interrupt you?
Next.
Did I interrupt you, Alan? Have I interrupted you once in 4 debates? No. I'll go a little respect.
Sure.
Yeah, some civility, some respect, and common sense. And you know what? Oh yeah, why not? Give it up for common sense. Well, I see, to be honest, I see validity to both points, and Ben actually is right. If you actually pay attention to people knocking on doors in Huron-Bruce, not just the people that support your party, a huge concern is terrorism, and is what are we going to do about it? And people do have the get them out of Canada mindset. A lot of people do. And I think where we need to go with this is actually generate some understanding here. Because Harper has worked incredibly hard over the last term, where he was unaccountable to anybody except himself, to make people afraid, to make them afraid of Sept. He made this whole nation, and probably some people in this room, terrified of a single woman's court case to wear a veil. Everybody is so worked up about this, they are forgetting that Canada is selling arms to Saudi Arabia, which is one of the most dangerous countries on this planet to be a woman. And it's a country that is using the light armored vehicles that this government supported selling them to crush democratic assemblies in their country. And so we have really a very, very difficult situation that we have to claw ourselves out of, and it begins with education, it begins with understanding, and it does begin with some common sense. Next up, please.
Thank you. My name is Marilyn Minster. I drove here from Kincardine, and I don't play baseball, but there's enough tension in here to replace all that tonight. My question, and it ends with a question mark, begins earlier this week in Toronto. Now Magazine reported on a candidate debate like this one. The question on the floor was a response from Green, NDP, and the Liberals saying that if the Safe Communities and Exploited Persons Act were put into the camps of these three parties, that they agreed that they would repeal the new law, Bill C-36, which grew out of Bedford versus Canada when they threw out the prostitution laws. And when they remodeled them, it was done to protect the exploited children in our country who are sold on the streets and in hidden places for their bodies by their rented bodies. Canada is a source, destination, and transit country for this kind of thing, and it is rife with it. You cannot drive a city highway and not pass a little kid being transferred for the purpose of exploitation. So my question with the question mark is this: if your party is to lead in this area, would you reinforce this new law and protect it? It's essential to protect young children, or would you wish to repeal it?
Marilyn, is it directed to anyone in particular?
It's directed to, well, the candidates who responded in Toronto. It wasn't the Conservatives, it was the NDP, the Green, and the Liberals said that they all agreed that they would repeal this.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to start?
I can tell you what the Green Party policy book says, and it says exactly that repeal C-36. But I have to tell you, I am not totally understanding what it all entails. So I'd love to hear more about your concerns, because I know that you work on this issue for a very, very long time. It also says that we enhance the fight against human trafficking, and I think that is in your interest, since you work on this, I understand, for 5 years or longer. Ames is very active in Kincardine and all over Ontario. So we also provide greater investment in addiction counseling and providing more robust funding for social services to help those driven to prostitution by economic deprivation, and provides enhanced counseling and education service to assist people trapped in the sex trade through poverty or addiction, and provide financial assistance for sex trade workers who want to find different employment. So I think those are all things in your interest. On C-36, I have to say, before I can make an informed decision, I need to have more consultation.
Yeah, C-36, I'm afraid I have to say the same. I don't want to give an answer without looking at it very closely. I attended the event at Harvard Church with you last year on human trafficking. I mean, it's very powerful to watch presentations like that, and the people who really risk their lives to protect children who are potentially victims of human trafficking and sexual exploitation. So in principle, I agree totally that Canada has to play a role as a world citizen to do what it can, absolutely everything that it can, to protect children who find themselves in this situation and to prosecute those who are responsible.
Anyone else? Ben?
Well, we have a number of problems in this area. One of the areas that we have is the Supreme Court ruled and made it very difficult, not only for legislators, but also police enforcement, police officers, as well as the court systems going forward. It had been an issue for many years prior to this as well. That's why I went to the Supreme Court. In addition to that, when we look at this country, coast to coast, and we look at the issue around human trafficking that often leads to many of the other social ills that we were talking about, our government is the only government in the history of this country that's actually taken action. It started with Joy Smith in Manitoba. Was a member of Parliament, was a leading advocate. It started with the Private Members Bill years and years and years ago to protect basically young women from being trafficked. And through her advocacy and many other groups in around the country, it gained steam to the point where it became government legislation, to the point it became law. And so we do have some mechanisms now in our legal system to protect at-risk and vulnerable females, and that's important. And all members of Parliament, all candidates should be getting behind initiatives like this, because it is a problem.
Okay. In that case, I guess why isn't the Conservative government doing anything to help missing and murdered Indigenous women, several of whom, actually a large number, are actually involved in human trafficking or the victims of human trafficking? So it's one thing to say, yes, we're doing something, but you can, put tough sounding words on a piece of paper, but if you're not willing to help a huge percentage of your population that are disappearing year over year, you got to practice what you preach.
Thank you. Next question.
Good evening. My name is Beth Bushy, and I would like to know everybody's position on life, just based on the Supreme Court's decision to allow assisted suicide. What is your position on protecting those that are most weak and vulnerable when they are mentally depressed or physically depressed? What will you plan to do to fight back against the Supreme Court's ruling?
Well, first, I guess that's assuming I would fight back against the Supreme Court's ruling. And we're talking about two very different issues here. We're talking about assisted suicide. Planned passing is how I prefer to look at it. And we're talking about the mental health system. Those are two very different things. With the planned passing, I can tell you I'm a former hospice volunteer. I had to give that up to be able to run because of time commitments. But I spent a lot of time at bedsides, just playing music for people, whether or not they were with me or anything like that. Just being company for them. And each and every person I visited had a do not resuscitate order. Okay, so if anything were to go south, if there were complications, anything like that, they did not want to be resuscitated. They were taking their life, they were making a choice, taking it into their own hands and saying, no, this is my time, I am ready. Now with planned passing, it's very similar. There was a very famous case out in BC. A woman, she knew her end was coming in days, and she wanted to go in her own terms, on her own way, surrounded by the family that loved her, and be able to say a very peaceful goodbye and be able to have a very, very beautiful moment with her family. Now, she was consciously aware of everything that was going on, and she was able to plan her exit from this world in a very touching and very beautiful way in her family. It wasn't imposed on her. It wasn't, you couldn't consider it killing. You couldn't consider it anything else. She did it. She took her own choice and did a very beautiful thing, like shared the most intimate moment of your life with her family. Now, as far as mental illness, no. As somebody who has seen the mental illness, the effects that it has in the community and everything, no. If it's a case of mental illness and suicidal thoughts or tendencies, we have every obligation as Canadians to make sure that help is available to them, because we can't be going over. We have suicide epidemics with First Nations. Like, we we have to make sure that every ounce of effort is given to making sure that we can treat the mental illness and actually give those people a chance for full lives. Ben?
Thanks very much for the question. This is my fourth election. Each and every election, I've supported life of the unborn. I've also, when I've had the opportunity in the House of Commons as an elected member, voted for that, or around any relevant bills. In addition to that, on euthanasia, I voted against euthanasia. I voted against euthanasia on a block private members bill in the two parliaments ago. So that's my voting record on those two issues. As a country and provinces, the provinces really need to do a number of things to make improvements for the end of the life. One is palliative care. In this area, in this region, the province has got it wrong. The Ministry of Health has got it wrong. We need more spaces for quality palliative care to give families and their sick family member an opportunity. That's one of the very first things. In addition, on the mental health side, it was under the strong leadership of Prime Minister Stephen Harper that he created the Mental Health Commission that Senator Dr. Kirby led. It was, I believe, around $300 million that was invested coast to coast to try and improve the outcomes of those who have mental health issues. That was a very important investment. We will be challenged, whoever wins government on October 19th and whoever is elected in this area, we will be challenged because the Supreme Court has told Parliament that we need to make changes and we need to look at certain options. That'll be a challenge. But my voting record is clear. It's been clear for 7 years, and my commitment for the last 10 years is on life. Thank you.
As a Green Party candidate, I support the position of our party. And this is, we were the first federal party that supported the change to the criminal code to allow physician-assisted death for for grievous and irremediable medical conditions. So this is basically for people having the capability to make the decision. Not for I do not support somebody else making this decision for me or for somebody else to die. But there is situations where people really do not want to suffer any longer and really want that option, that choice. And I have to say I'm one of them. I do not believe that I want like life support, and I would like to do a living will. So the Green Party is ready to actually, when the deadline for the Supreme Court is on February 6th of next year, we will not support extension. We will say then let it be, and the provinces will basically regulate it. It's true, if there is a lack of courage to legislate in a controversial area, then it so will be. But this is my position.
Thank you. It's a very, very important question. The way you framed your question, you did ask, what would we do to fight the Supreme Court decision? You're entitled to frame the question that way. I think I understand where you're coming from and get a sense of your view. But the way our Constitution works and the way the Canadian government works, it's not the role of the Prime Minister or the government to fight Supreme Court decisions. The Supreme Court has ruled that the law that exists now on this very, very fraught, emotional issue does not stand. And it is up to the government of the day not to fight the Supreme Court, but to put in place a law that complies with people's rights. And I do believe this is a question of rights. Of course, we have to have measures to ensure that no one's rights are ever abused in this situation. But it still comes back to a question of rights and the person's right to make a choice, if that is their wish, to die with dignity. And I would imagine there are many people in this room who have been at the side of a close family member who is dying of a terminal illness. And to be honest, I don't know what my father wanted. I don't know what his wishes were. And I think that's because we didn't talk about it. And as a society, I think we need to talk about issues like this one.
Hi there, my name's Matt Bushy. I got to hand it to Ben for congratulating Mr. Harper on those carbon emissions drops when it was probably the deflated economy that contributed more towards those than anything Mr. Harper did. Sorry.
Please go closer to the microphone that we
I
can
think I
hear.
have to lift it up. Okay, so my real question is though, since 2008, the bulk of the jobs that have been recreated, and we're not quite back to where we were, but that's not to be expected. The bulk of the jobs that were recreated are low-skilled jobs and low-paying jobs. And in the next, say, 30 years, a good 40% of our workforce is going to be replaced by automation and robots. So what do your, I'm going to frame this towards you, Ben, but to your other candidates as well. What is your take, and how is Mr. Harper going to do things differently in this term to ensure that the Canadians are taken care of?
Thanks for the question. Since the economic downturn, there's been 1.3 million net new jobs created in this country. The vast majority of them full-time, the vast majority of them in the private sector, and the vast majority of them in the high-paying sector. They're high-paying jobs. That's a fact. If anybody followed the news today, General Electric is making the move to increase over 250, to add a plant in this country, and that's going to be over 250 or 300 jobs, and looking to invest more in Canada because we have high-skilled, well-trained employees with excellent trade colleges, with excellent trade programs, and very high-tech universities where we can train the employees of the future. One of the companies that I worked for before I got elected, they had 150 employees. Today they have over 800 employees. These are the realities. If you go up and down this riding, both in Huron-Bruce County, and you talk to job creators, business owners, etc., and you ask them what their biggest problem is, it's finding workers, okay? In one newspaper alone, in a very small community in this riding, there was 22 job ads in the newspaper. And they're not all low-paying jobs, they're mid and high-paying jobs as well. We are in a great place in this riding. The best is yet to come in this country for jobs. We're a country under the leadership of this Prime Minister and of the past Jim Flaherty to create a low tax environment, low red tape, increased trade to provide markets for our products, tariff reduced and tariff free. So the best is yet to come for this country.
It should also be added that the vast majority of jobs are not in Huron-Bruce either. And, well, it's very true. And a lot of these things, I mean, I look at the newspapers too, and poverty and transportation issues are one of the huge factors in why people can't take these jobs. People don't have enough to get by, and if you want to be, talk about the social assistance loop, people have to sell their cars to be able to get any help from the government as it stands. And I know that's a provincial issue, but this is a poverty loop, and that's why people can't get to work at the bottom. You say, oh, why don't you just go get a job? A lot of people can't because they had to sell everything they had to be able to even get a little bit of help. Now the NDP, I mean, what we want to do is invest in small manufacturers because, well, we've seen the current approach. Volvo and Goddard is a good example. And I was there when the plant closed. That was 400 jobs gone. The plant moved to Pennsylvania. They're not making graders anymore. The intellectual property was sold. So if they wanted to make graders in Goddard anymore, good luck. And that's the type of trade system that we have. Yes, we can say, oh, we're opening up markets, we're opening up markets. We're opening up markets for our labor, for the Americans, for the Chinese, because I know where Ben worked, and there's 3 flags hanging outside there now, where there used to be only one.
Jobs.
Sorry, I keep using it just so it doesn't clump.
Jobs. Very, very, very important question. And when you framed your question, you said, is Harper going to do things differently? And I think, frankly, the answer is no. Mr. Harper thinks he's got it right. And I'm afraid I disagree. I think we do need real change in this country. You can slice and dice the numbers in many, many ways, but a fact that many people agree on, this government has the worst record on economic growth since the 1930s. It's abysmal. Much, much more needs to be done. We need to invest in innovation, in green technology, in skills training, and in an area like this one, I think we have to be very, very conscious. Yes, we can talk about strategies at the national level, but as I said at the beginning, I think it's incumbent upon the Member Parliament for an area like Huron-Bruce to focus on such issues as the rural brain drain. It is a reality. We need to look for ways that we can create strategies that would make it feasible for our young people to settle down and make their lives here in Huron-Bruce, if that's what they want to do. We simply need to work much, much harder.
If you look at our history, Huron-Bruce was way more diverse before our big employer, Bruce Power, appeared. So I think it is not a good thing anywhere in a country where you just put all your eggs in one basket. There's no reason why we can't diversify. There's so much potential. Why are we shipping all our raw product out? There is areas, I just read in Kingston, there's a lot of economic development in other ridings where a frozen food processor starts investing, and they have a vision that by 2020 they have 5,000 people employed there. So we gotta look at different things, our retrofitting our houses, be more energy efficient, just what, like the future technologies. Every $1 million, there's studies about it, that every $1 million you invest in different industries other than oil or nuclear will actually give you more jobs. I mean, it is maybe a vision that you cannot see yet and that are people afraid here, but I think when you look across the borders or to other ridings where there's good economic development, you will see a bright future.
Thank you. Next question.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Sandy Greer, and I would like to ask about the DGR, coming at it from a different angle. I would like to suggest, first of all, that the Joint Review Panel's final environmental assessment report has major flaws in it, and there are some citizens in Bruce County who have even requested a judicial review of the entire environmental assessment in regard to the DGR that is being proposed next to Lake Huron. I would also like to respectfully suggest that, and continuing from what Yuta suggested, is that Bruce power and nuclear power is not the only economic driver in this region. Agriculture and tourism are two other very important continuing drivers of the economy into the future indefinitely. But what we need to think about are the lives of our children and our grandchildren. And this DGR is environmentally dangerous, and there is scientific evidence that identifies those issues that the Ontario Power Generation Corporation very conveniently omit from a lot of their evidence. And I can say this having attended every day of 2 public hearings and doing hours and hundreds of pages of reading on scientific research during the last 3 years, probably thousands of pages. So my question to all candidates is, could you please try, because I know this is a real dilemma for all citizens in this region, is to separate the existing economic power and the jobs that are given to people by Bruce Power and all of the related businesses in the region and beyond. Separate Bruce Power, which is an existing employer, from the unknown danger of a project which has never been successfully completed on this planet. And any DGRs, there's only been a few of them in other countries, have all leaked radionuclides into the environment in a matter of a short number of years. This is not proven to be safe technology, and even deep in the pages of the Nuclear Waste Management Organization as well as the OPG, they do say that radionuclides will leak into the environment. What they do not say is how many and how often. And they don't even take into consideration climate change and extreme weather events in the future, which are inevitable. So heaven help us all. So what I would like to ask all candidates is for you to separate out the DGR issue from the existing nuclear power plant as an employer. And please, are you willing to do more research beyond the JRP report, like to go into other types of research, to raise questions about whether the OPG should receive a license to construct a DGR next to Lake Huron. So I want to focus tonight on the low and intermediate level, because low-level radiation is dangerous as well. And it never goes away. It goes into half-lives for a very long time. So it's also dangerous. Thank you.
Okay, that was a long question. Who wants to go first? Anyone feel like answering that?
Sandy, thanks for the question. It's a very important one. I did speak to this sort of indirectly in response to the other question about the DGR. I just think that it's not just a question of looking at this in terms of the employment and the benefits that Bruce Power provides to this community, but I also think as those who have benefited not just in terms of employment, but from the power that is generated by that technology that drives the engines of our economy. We have a responsibility to deal as best we can with the waste that is generated by that technology. And I will just maintain, as I did before, I'm concerned most about the safety and security of our communities, but also my support for nuclear power as a safe, clean source of energy. I'm not a scientist. I believe in evidence-based policymaking. I read the Joint Review Panel report, and my assessment as a non-scientist is that it appears to address concerns about safety, local geology, the Great Lakes, long-term safety features, and the responsibility of OPG to manage the project. And if I'm given the privilege of being the Member of Parliament from this area, I would meet with you as I did as a candidate, but would also follow this very, very closely to make sure that at every step the project is environmentally sound and ensures safe and prosperous Huron-Bruce.
I think you brought a really big point up that I keep hearing that people have trouble separating the industry that produces the waste from the plan of the DGR. And I think it is really important that people who work there have still the freedom to have an opinion. It's not that you have to blankly support it. So I will continue to consult as many and get as many angles as I can. I have been doing that. I have a lot of friends that work at the plant or nuclear engineers that have many, many years of experience, and they have concerns. I have people that work for OPG and contact me and say, please, this is not a good idea. But I also listen, I will continue to listen to all sides. And I think the conditions, I will keep an eye on whatever decision will be made, that if this plan gets licensing, that the conditions are more clear, because what we have right now is not acceptable. It is not a good plan. If this goes ahead, there's too many questions. So I encourage everybody to go on, that lives here, to look at the plan and follow the process.
Thanks very much. My thoughts are that most people can distinguish the two, and they do distinguish the two. OPG is responsible through the Western Waste Facility. It's shipped from Pickering, Darlington, to the site at Bruce Power. It's stored in the, like I said, with Western Waste. I've been at the facility. One of the benefits, I think, of going through the process is that they've been able to find ways to reduce the amount of material that actually will be going into storage into the future. So that's one positive. But again, I don't know that anybody in here is a geological engineer. If you are, congratulations. But most of us aren't, and so we have to rely on our experts. We have to rely on scientists. This process began when Paul Steckley was the Member of Parliament. That'll give you an idea of how long this process has taken. So if we have any faith at all in our public servants, if we have any faith at all in the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act, then we have to trust what we found through the hearings. They were exhaustive. And so that's the reality of it. And if I was asked, and I gave my answer to the minister and her staff, that I would go ahead with the project. And if I were re-elected, I would say the same thing again. If we believe in our scientists, we believe in our public servants, if we believe in the environmental assessment process, then we have to go with the results.
I suppose I have a little more cautious approach, and I suppose I do have to repeat a bit what I said earlier. For bang for the buck, I guess, or for the amount of money spending, we have to look at, can we create the harm reduction technology at home to be able to process this low-level stuff and reduce the amount of it that would even potentially be going underground. I toured the Bruce a few weeks ago anyways, and I thought it was really odd. I'm a musician, and I had to play a couple nights from there, and of course I was excited because I got free earplugs, and you don't often get that. But I had to throw the earplugs out when I left the place, and that is, I guess that boils down to the issue that you raised, Sandy, is all the waste necessary? You know, and I was talking to some family I had that work at the Bruce, and that could be a huge game changer, is being able to scan your things. You know, if you're wearing a pair of gloves and only one finger of them has any sort of radioactive particle, why are you throwing out the whole thing? That's excess volume of waste that is not contaminated or does not have any radioactive particles on it. So we could be reducing the amount of waste, the amount of low-level waste, and not just assume that everything is contaminated. We can actually, and should be, actually checking to see what the levels of contamination are, if this stuff actually is contaminated, and if it needs to be disposed of. Now, that's a huge push, and that's a huge thing that would greatly reduce. But again, for the money that we're spending, I would like to see it, and this, I mean, I would stand for it 100% as an MP, see it spent, or advocate for it to be spent on producing that harm reduction and that volume reduction technology here in Canada, so that people don't have to be nervous about shipping this on the water. We can actually process this responsibly, safely at home, and reduce harm. Thank you.
May I ask or make a follow-up comment? Just to finish up, please. I'll make it quick. What I would really like to implore all of you to consider is that I do not believe the OPG should be given a license. Given what several of you suggest, is we need to do more research, and meanwhile, this low-level and intermediate-level waste has been above ground for 40 years plus, and it's monitored 24/7. It cannot be monitored when it's underground. And there are just too many issues that are not known yet, and even scientists themselves would have different interpretations of data. I mean, I could just go on until midnight, but of course I won't, but it's too controversial and it's too dangerous, and I really believe that OPG, they must be stopped from receiving a license until much more research is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kerr. Next.
Hi, I'm Tim Rock, local resident here. Mr. Thompson, welcome back to Bruce County, and welcome back to the greatest place to, I think, live in this province and in this country. I know you've been gone for 30 years, I suppose, or more. But welcome back, and good choice for coming back here. My question is, do you agree with your leader that the majority of small business owners are the rich folk, just using them as tax evasion or whatever. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. Thank you for the question, and I'm very happy to be here in Bruce County, a place that shaped me, and to put myself forward as a candidate to be the Member of Parliament for this area. I think it's a privilege, and every day when you knock on doors, you're reminded of that privilege. I think all four of us are experiencing that. As for your question, I think small business is the driver of our economy. This is truly the backbone of the Canadian economy. And in many ways, I think that the secret, if there is one, to getting us out of the economic situation that we're in is to find ways for small business to prosper, to create an environment where small business owners can find the employees that they want, can find export markets, and to be able to create employment, innovative employment in this area to replace the furniture factories and the Volvo plants that aren't coming back.
Follow-up?
Go ahead.
Is that by doing that, you're going to increase tax on small business then?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
By helping small businesses, you're doing that by increasing tax on them then, correct?
No, I don't think you would seek to increase taxes on small business. I think you should create an environment where small businesses can prosper, find export markets, and in communities like Walkerton, be able to create opportunities for our young people. Many people have to leave this area to pursue their education. By definition, if you want to go to university or college, you leave Huron-Bruce County. And for those individuals to come back and make their lives here, I think we need to create the kind of opportunities that will attract them to communities like Walkerton.
Okay, I know that question is directed at Mr. Thompson, but do you want to answer it as well, Joe?
What I hear is also that some of the barriers, like when legislation has been put up on small businesses, it's really difficult for small business to just deal with all the paperwork. And so I think it's red tape has to be removed. Small businesses certainly should, the tax should be reduced, and where the Green Party wants to increase the tax is the corporate tax. I mean, why did we reduce it basically 1% each year if you would see it over the years from 2000 till now? Like, there's no reason why corporate tax should be 15%. So the Green Party says it should be raised to 19%, and that will put us in the position to fund other activities.
Ben?
Thanks for the question. You need to reduce taxes, you need to make sure you have a well-trained workforce, and you need to make sure the regulatory burden and red tape are not there. Our government created the Red Tape Commission to make it easier for businesses to function in this country. That's the reality. One way you don't attract business is the way Justin Trudeau is trying to attract business in this country. What you don't do to employers and employees is create a payroll tax of $1,000 for a person earning $60,000 a year, in addition to what the employer would pay, which is more. Again, I've gone door knocking. I've heard it from people who are in business. There's 100 corporations in the province of Ontario already that have signed a letter demanding that this be returned back, that this not be proposed. This is a Kathleen Wynne, Justin Trudeau dream. The other thing you don't do, another payroll tax, if I may, is increase employment insurance premiums. We have a target to reduce employment insurance premiums by 2017. Justin Trudeau has a plan to increase them. Once again, employers pay and employees. What businesses need in this area are reductions. Reductions in taxes, reductions in what they have to pay. Another thing that we don't need in this country is a price on carbon, a job-killing carbon tax, which is what, in different iterations and versions, each opposition leader is proposing. So this election gives us an opportunity to take a very sharp focus and contrast between one reality, which is decreased taxes, decreased regulatory burden where businesses can operate, or what the other parties are offering, taxes on payroll, taxes on carbon, that are going to drive businesses out of this country.
I'm with you in that it's certainly pampered and juvenile to assume that small businesses are tax cheats, because I've seen so many Main Street businesses close in my time. I've been reporting in municipal affairs for the better part of 10 years, and yeah, people aren't cheating taxes when they're shuttering their doors. That's a falsehood. With the EI fund, though, it is of note that successive Liberal and Conservative majority governments have rated the EI fund of about $57 billion. And so they can talk a big game on it, but when it comes down to it, you're using it to pay your bills, and that's on the backs of, and you won't believe this, but it's true, it's the poor that are paying the EI. They're the ones that, 36% of Canadians qualify for EI. People that are low income, at the lowest end of the income scale, often do not get the hours to be able to qualify for EI. So they are actually the ones that are keeping the EI afloat, while people on the higher ends of the income scale are able to qualify for it, because if they get laid off, they have the hours. And for the people that are actually funding EI, which is the vast majority of people at the bottom, they don't even get to take advantage of the system that they are bolstering. And study after study after study, and even if you just look in Canada, has shown every drastic reduction in corporate taxes has not put a cent into higher wages. It goes into posting record profits year over year over year. And so we need legislation that actually says, okay, if we're going to lower that, you have to actually pass that on to your workers. Now, the NDP's approach, we are lowering the small business tax from 11 to 9%, something that Stephen Harper adopted. And we are also going to increase the corporate tax marginally, 2%, less than it was still before Stephen Harper came into power. So it's all about readjustment and trying to, and this is very real, not balance our EI system on the backs of the poor because they don't qualify. Thank you.
One final question for the evening, sir.
My name is Terry Kerrigan. I want to direct this mainly to Mr. Thompson. I would like to know what Justin Trudeau's thoughts are on whether or not he's going to continue to allow income splitting, or if he's going to cancel that. And the second short question is he going to legalize marijuana? And I'm not talking about medical marijuana.
Thanks for the question. There are two parts. The first one's very important because there's a lot of confusion about this. I think it's a sad reality when we live in an environment of attack ads that people can be confused by propaganda. And just to be clear, what Justin Trudeau has proposed, there's something called income splitting for working couples with children that was introduced recently by the Conservative government, that Justin Trudeau has said is not a measure that benefits the vast majority of Canadians. It benefits a small number of people. That money would be better directed to create childcare spaces, to create opportunities for our young people, to help our seniors. That's income splitting for working couples with children. There's something else that is often called income splitting. It's pension splitting that was created some years ago, and this allows retirees to income split, share their pension income for tax purposes. Justin Trudeau has been absolutely crystal clear on this point, time and time again, when asked this question. There is no intention to touch pension splitting for seniors. There would be no reason to try and put our seniors at that disadvantage. And the reason that people are confused about this point is because there are those in this election campaign who want to confuse rather than simply present their platform and let people make choices for themselves. It's been a clear policy of Justin Trudeau that the Liberal Party would legalize marijuana. This is a way to stop turning our young people into criminals. And it's been a very straightforward policy. We should legalize marijuana.
True open comp, or I suppose our Liberal candidate can also talk about creating confusion in a system, but it's also incredibly confusing when the Liberals lift the NDP's plan for yet another election. Run on it, and then take a conservative road when it actually comes to getting the job done. NDP, income splitting? No. Pension splitting? Yes. It's exactly that simple. And when you look at the numbers for income splitting, the only people it benefits are those making $100,000 to $200,000 or more, single earner households, and even then, the benefit actually only works out to about $2,000. And so it's all kind of smoke and mirrors made in an election year, and it's a promise to make sure that smoke and mirrors, I guess that goes along with the marijuana thing too. But no, income splitting, it really does disproportionately only benefit a very small portion of the population, especially in Huron-Bruce, where the average income in Bruce County is about $33,000. And in Ontario, the average income is $69,000. So we can talk about this all we want, but the fact is, at street level, people aren't making that kind of money here, and so really, it's almost not a factor here, because the majority of people in this riding can't do it. But pension splitting, absolutely. We've got to quit nickel and diming seniors on that. Quick climb back. On marijuana, NEP, decriminalize it. And that would do significant savings in the justice system, because what we are doing is throwing millions of dollars away every single year processing people that really don't need to be processed. You know, if you're caught smoking a joint, should you really go to court? Should we really have to pay for you going to court because you happen to be caught by an officer smoking a little dope outside? I don't want to pay for that. I don't want to pay for you doing that. And I'm sure as hell hope you don't want to pay for me doing that. It's a huge waste of money and time.
One of the problems the Liberals have reconciling their program on legalization is that, and I served on the health committee, we did a study on this. They're against smoking cigarettes because that's bad for your health, but they're for smoking marijuana. So the Lung Association, Cancer Stuff, they would say putting anything in your lungs is bad for you. So I don't know why we're going to turn back the clock 50 years and start promoting smoking marijuana, not to mention all the social ills, our youth smoking marijuana at a young age. Now, the other part on the income splitting, on Saturday, Ralph Goodale and John McCallum presented their economic platform. In there's a massive hole. There's over a $6 billion hole. And when asked the question, they said everything is on the table. That's what they said. It's in black and white. Everything's on the table. They've already committed to cutting income splitting for families. They've already committed to cutting the universal child care benefit, which puts $160 into every family with kids under 6, every kid. Over 6, it's $60 per month. That's gone. The child tax benefit, which helps our most vulnerable mothers and fathers in this riding, they're going to cut that as well. And they have some other contrived program that it would take you all day to explain. But the point is, folks, this is what they've said they've cut, and they've got a massive hole. They have a $10 billion deficit that they're promising right out of the gate. They've got to find a way in year 4 to balance it, and there's only there's only 2 ways they can do it: taxing or cutting. You pick.
Well, I was one of the people that got the check and for child tax, and I was surprised to hear, well, we have to pay taxes on that, and the benefit of that is actually very low. So I am totally against this highly costly of an administration to send all these checks out. It is just amazing. I prefer to have a guaranteed livable income for each citizen of $20,000 a year. That's the bottom line. And we don't need to have all these little checks just before an election. That is just dirty. Marijuana, I think we're mixing up legalization and encouraging people. I proudly can say to my kids, Mom never smoked dope. I do not support it. My party is in favor of legalization, and I get educated by young people. They say, Mom, why are you against it? And you drink, and it causes more. So anyways, I think we have to distinguish between legalization of marijuana and and that is actually, when you look at it, amazing. The taxes, imagine the taxes we get. So this is just my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our open question for this evening. Now each of the candidates are going to be given an opportunity to rebuttal everything that was discussed this evening, and they've got a couple minutes. And we're going to start with Mr. Alan Thompson.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for participating tonight. As I said at the beginning, I think this is the most important election in a generation. And you face this evening two very clear issues that you have to decide. You will have to decide who you want among the four of us as your member of parliament after the coming election. And I think it's incumbent upon us as candidates to put ourselves forward and to talk about our work experience, our background, what we have to offer, and why we think we deserve the privilege of serving as a member of parliament for Huron-Bruce. I was born and raised in this area, grew up on a farm. Bruce County made me who I am. I also had the privilege of working in other cities, in Toronto, in Ottawa, in England, in Africa. I have 30 years of experience in journalism and in public affairs in Canada. And I'm putting that forward as the qualification that I think I have to serve you and to serve the people of Huron-Bruce as a member of parliament. The second thing that you'll have to decide, which of the parties before you do you want as your government? Who do you want to govern this country? What kind of prime minister do you want? And I think with each passing day, we are seeing two very clear choices in front of us. The current government, a prime minister who says more of the same, who governs through cynicism and secrecy and attack ads. And I think the other option is represented by Justin Trudeau, who is putting forward a positive, constructive vision for this country and is telling you what he and his party have to offer. And on that basis, I am asking you to support myself as your candidate, Alan Thompson, and the Liberal Party of Canada. Thank you.
My friends, today you got to meet me, and what you see is what you get. I'm honest, I'm committed, you can hold me accountable. And I can assure you, I will work to try to restore good government and collaborate on your behalf. This is my second campaign, and I know now why it is important sometimes to lose. In the municipal election, I came as close as 20 votes, and I'm here again to try. I believe that we as citizens have to have choices. I believe, like Petra Kelly, the founder of the Green Movement, if we don't do the impossible, we may face the unthinkable. I can offer you my open mind and ability to listen with deep respect, all in an effort to build a prosperous and a sustainable future. I think we run out of time, and we have to believe in science, and we have to acknowledge that we have to take climate action. I think the Green Party will open up and lead us to Paris, and we need representation by a Green MP in Huron-Bruce to have that vision. So I ask you to vote for a Canada that works together. I ask you to elect in this election, vote with your head and your heart. Vote for Jutta Splatzdasser.
Thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed the debate tonight. We may not agree on everything, but one thing's for sure. In Huron-Bruce, we always have a great debate and good candidates that can think on their feet, and they don't have to just read out of their booklets provided. So I think it was a good debate overall tonight, and all candidates should be applauded for that. Over the last 9 years, our government has weathered the economic instability with a plan of low taxes, a balanced budget, economic growth, and benefits provided directly to families. We are making record investments in infrastructure and supporting growth in our manufacturing sector. As a result of our actions, the typical family with children is now receiving tax relief and increased benefits of up to $6,600 per year. Since the depths of the economic recession, 1.3 million net new jobs have been created. These are overwhelmingly full-time, private sector jobs in high-wage industries. While the global economy remains uncertain, unstable, we must remain on track and continue with our government's low-tax, balanced budget plan for the economy. The Liberals and the NDP would make different choices. The Liberals are campaigning on long-term deficits and have unequivocally promised to run multi-billion-dollar deficits for the next 3 years and maybe beyond. Now is not the time for inexperienced leadership that will lead to economic decline, higher taxes on all Canadians, including a job-killing payroll tax. We are confident in our long-term plan and are ready to meet the economic challenges that lie ahead, ready to emerge faster and stronger than other countries, just as we did after the 2008 global financial crisis. With our long-term plan of low taxes, a balanced budget and growth, Canada is able to protect jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, only our Conservative government can be trusted to keep the budget balanced, keep taxes low, and benefits provided for all Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Mark?
I only have a single rebuttal, and that's to Mr. Thompson. If Ben doesn't use the name Harper too much, I would say you're using the name Trudeau as a crutch. Now, this election presents the first opportunity for change in Canada in 150 years alternating between red and blue governments, and it's an opportunity for progress and for prosperity. And we need to contemporize politics because the next generation of voters don't feel they have a government that reflects their views. Job opportunities have dried up, and we have to create new ones for them to come home to. I don't want to see hometowns fade away, and I know you don't either, because we're stronger than that. And I know that because I've been here all along, writing the stories, taking the photos, following up on our greatest successes, and sadly our greatest tragedies.
I'm 34 years old. I've been in local news for 10 years almost now in communities across this region. I have an intimate knowledge of how rural Ontario works because it's been the focus of my entire career. I'm a first-generation Canadian on my father's side, or new stock if you go by Harper's definition. My family came to Canada from Belgium 8 years after the Second World War because my grandfather didn't want his sons dying in vain after what he went through. Canada accepted them, they accepted us with open arms. But Canada's arms are closing, and so is its mind. People are afraid now, they're afraid of the unknown, afraid for their jobs and their families, and now the Reds and Blues want you to be afraid of us. Conservatives will tell you Canada can't afford to put the NDP first. Meanwhile, under Harper, they've racked up 1/4 of Canada's total debt since Confederation. The Liberals will tell you an NDP vote is a wasted vote. Meanwhile, they are third place in this riding, and they know it. The NDP wants to shift focus back to people, because it's people's votes that build government, and it's people's votes that should take them down. Our Canada has consequences when the powerful prey on the weak. Now, to all those small C Conservatives who Harper ignored, to all those blue Liberals who want stability and steadiness, to all those Greens who want fair and truly representative elections, join with me and vote NDP this year. Join with us, and let's take the power back.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our evening. I'd like to once again thank the candidates for coming out tonight, and you, the audience, for coming out tonight, and the Connect Club of Walkerton for sponsoring this event. Please remember there are refreshments downstairs. Thank you very much.
I don't think this is locked. He had a lot of people asking